So, welcome back to Healing Chat podcast. Today, I'm so excited to have Stephanie here.
Yay.
Steph is the founder of Body Banter. So, this is an organization that she started in 2016 after realizing the powerful role that discussion and advocacy played in her own eating disorder journey. Body Banter works to basically amplify voices and empower individuals to be the driving force behind creating a more accepting world. So let's start at the very beginning. So the journey from your personal healing to founding an organization is basically a huge leap. So
Mhm.
what made you decide to take your own experience and turn it outward to create a community like Body Banter? What did you feel like it was missing from the existing conversation about body image and mental health at that time?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you, Nicole, for having me on Healing Chats. It's a great pleasure, and I'm excited to share a bit about my story and Body Banter's founding story, I guess. Yeah, so just to start off, I think the reason why it was so important to me to start an organization at the time, it was purely to do a little bit of research on myself. I always like to put it that way. And one of my mentors, shared a phrase that really stuck with me, which was all research is me search. And I think there's nothing quite that is truer than that. And a lot of the work that I do today is fueled by my personal experiences. And I think that's the way that makes or it is something that makes the work more powerful. I think lived experience gives an edge to the work that you do, and especially with social impact work, it gives that edge of just being able to empathize with what other people are experiencing. That the beneficiaries you work with are not just people who need help; they are people who have similar experiences to you and need. Very specific kinds of care or support that you are kind of uniquely in a place to at least just to understand. And I would say that throughout my journey with building Body Banter, I've learned that even with my lived experience of an eating disorder and body image struggles, that doesn't make me the expert of every person's experience, of everyone who has ever experienced body image or eating disorders. And it just makes me even more curious. I think it makes me someone who will ask the questions, start from the right place at least. And that's what I believe, even to this day, as I continue to build Body Banter. So I guess just to answer that in a short, condensed way, I
Yeah.
started Body Banter because I think it's important to bring forward your lived experience and to use it as a way to prompt curiosity and introspection for yourself, how you can give back to other people with your story, but also because I think it just makes for very positive work in the community because you even if you don't have a lived experience that applies to every person that you serve, it does give you that empathetic edge that allows you to ask the questions from the right place. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's so powerful to hear that, like your individual like experiences and then how you built Body Banter. And definitely everyone has like different struggles and it's very hard for us
Mhm.
to actually know or like understand. But then I feel that building these like platforms, at least we can have a more accepting world towards like any sort of like
Yeah.
mental health or like physical health even. So it brings me to a concept I found on Body Banter, like the website that
Yeah.
I absolutely love. So it's called restoring. So it's such
Mm.
a powerful term for me. For our listener who are quite new to it, could you describe in your like own words what restoring means to you?
Yeah. So I actually didn't come up with the term restoring. It's used a lot in the narrative,
Yeah.
um, and narrative identity and just narrative research more broadly.
Mhm.
I'm not sure who coined it initially, so I'll have to come back to you on that. But I did my PhD on the topic of lived experience stories, which are stories of people's real journeys of navigating mental illness and subsequent recovery. And this is a term I came across as I was doing my literature review. And similarly, I think it was very powerful for me to learn about too, because I think For a long time, when I was navigating recovery from the eating disorder I experienced in my teens, I had a very I would say a very rigid way of understanding what I was experiencing and how I could get out of it. So it was very much constrained within stigmatizing narratives that we often hear in Hong Kong, which is that if you experience a mental illness, you're crazy, quote unquote crazy, and that you are beyond repair. There's something absolutely fundamentally wrong with you.
Yeah.
And so I think those narratives inherently, when you adopt them and internalize them, make them your own, you are basically just buying into this conventional storyline. And many people do. I think that's the thing about these broad societal narratives. They do have a way of just like infiltrating the self. And so I think that the idea of restoring was just so powerful because it just provides a framework for us to understand that we don't have to stick to these conventional narratives and that we can be the ones, as an author does in their lives, kind of to create at least alternative ways to interpret your story. It's not to say that you completely refute or to say, oh, these societal narratives are wrong, I'm going to step on them and sweep them under the rug, because they do exist in society. Realistically, we live in a society where they float around, relatives, friends, peers will throw them at you, or even the most well-intentioned ones may have these misconceptions, right? But I think restoring allows us to have alternative ways to think about it. So perhaps instead of being like, I'm beyond repair, there's something fundamentally wrong with me, perhaps could it be that this particular challenge has allowed me to go deeper into myself and understand pieces that are hurting, so that I can build up kind of a different or a new layer of skin. Even that's just one of the examples of saying, like, yes, there might be parts of myself, as I would imagine any other person in this world. We have our broken pieces. We have those pieces that are painful or flawed, and also at the same time, not mutually exclusive to the fact that we can also have the ability to repair and to find a different way of understanding those pieces of ourselves. I also found it to be a very healing idea and concept for myself. And hopefully it's something that other people, when hearing this concept, can take into their own lives too.
Yeah, I love how you say that's not basically erasing all the past, maybe like the concept that the society have for us, but it's about building ourselves, like starting when we're healing, like, or different journey, or maybe when you're just starting at uni, right? Because as myself,
for sure.
freshman, definitely there are a lot of different things. Maybe sort of it's very different from secondary school, I'll say that. So yeah, probably restoring also helps, like, for me at this stage. So I feel that this is a really powerful concept for myself. And it makes me think of like someone who might be listening right now who feels completely held captive by a single, maybe very painful story about their body or their mind. It's story that just plays on a loop. I have heard of a lot of stories about that. And if that's someone's reality, what is the very first or most gentle act of restoring you would guide them to do?
Wow. I just love that question because it's the first solution, or rather the first step that a lot of people think to take is to offer them a solution of like, oh, why don't you just think of this? Or why don't you be more positive? Or why don't you smile more? And in my case with the eating disorder, it's comical now to think that I was that I received this comment, but also just like it goes to show how how challenging the mental health environment can be in Hong Kong. It's just someone saying to me, "Why don't you just go eat a croissant? Why don't you just go eat something?" Like, and I was like, "That's not how it works, dude."
Yeah.
And so I think the most compassionate thing that we can do for someone as they navigate restorying is to give them space to actually verbalize those negative narratives first. I don't think it's helpful for someone to pretend that they don't exist, as I was saying. Perhaps for someone to open up and share where those beliefs come from. Like maybe they had someone tell them that they were in a larger body, that they were unattractive, or that there was this one critical remark that just stuck in their heads and was played on a loop over the course of their lives and became that limiting belief. So for someone to just verbalize that is really powerful, and then to just offer that space for the person to, and obviously as a friend or even a family member, you're not their therapist, and I would say don't expect yourself to be someone who's going to solve or to alleviate the distress. But I think listening to the person open up about the stories that exist in their heads, and then just to be like, what's another way that we could think about that? And also to ask that person, what would you say to a friend who is going through the same struggle? I think many of us have heard this piece of advice of like, if you're struggling with compassion to yourself, think about what you would say to someone you love. Would you say that to a younger version of yourself? Would you be as cruel to that younger version of yourself, or like a younger sibling, or like a younger cousin that you love? I think that really helps for people to gain some perspective on how critical their remarks to themselves really are.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people would just say, "Oh, why don't you just be positive?" Like, I think this is in a traditional society, like Hong Kong family or parents, I'm actually suffering more when I was like young, right? So there are a lot of comparison.
Yeah.
I definitely think that listening is really helpful. Like, at least give them some space for them to verbalize the emotions or their suffering. It's already a really like great method, because I feel that people who are suffering and pain, they need to verbalize their emotions in order not to
Yes, for
like just
sure.
suppress it. And I feel that if we are heard and like understood, it's more likely that we will be able to like verbalize more about our deeper feelings. So I really like
Definitely.
how you present, like how do we help, or like just basically listen, because yes, as you said, we're not therapists.
Yeah.
So I feel
Yeah.
that yes, listening and understanding, allowing them to verbalize is already a really like great way to maybe just help them when we're going like in these days, right? Social media, like it's definitely one of a platform that doesn't just show us images, right? It feeds very specific story about success, beauty, and a
Definitely.
perfect body image. So what are the most common like damaging body image stories being sold to us through algorithms and influencers today? Because I know people suffer from eating disorder just because of, they said that, oh, social media is showing a lot of like what is pretty, what is beautiful to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Um, I think the most damaging body image story is the one that doesn't present itself that way. Like it's put in disguise. And what I mean
Yeah.
by that is like the ones who will say that you need this product or this particular kind of appearance to be healthy. And it's like it puts together, and I'm sure you can relate, like just conflates those concepts of like appearance and health together, and says that it essentially health and happiness are contingent on a certain appearance or the use of a certain product, or the adoption of a certain kind of dieting or exercise regime. Anything that kind of puts um you know a certain thing related to dieting, exercise, and appearance on a pedestal and says this is the best way to achieve what you want in life. I think that's the most damaging, because it doesn't present itself honestly.
Yeah.
And I think increasingly we see that kind of marketing, right? And I don't think
Yeah.
it's not even just constrained to diet products or the kind of the biggest culprits. It's like when people show what I eat in a day videos, where people talk
Uh,
about they know, in their heart of hearts that they have a certain kind of body shape, and they say, if you want to be like me, just follow my diet regime. And that doesn't
yeah,
present itself blatantly as diet culture, because the person can argue and say, that's just what I'm saying. You don't have to listen to me.
yeah,
You didn't have to follow me. But
yeah,
realistically, this person has a large following, and
yeah.
there is some degree of responsibility in what they're saying. So yeah, I think that would be what I would say is the most dangerous.
So definitely, I also like, although like I don't really watch those videos, but I certainly do. There's
Hmm.
like, oh, what do I eat in one day? I
Yeah.
think a lot of people do follow them. They have a huge
Yes.
number of
Yeah, for sure.
followers. So definitely, they have definitely influence to either maybe like young people. Maybe they haven't
Yes, for sure.
have like a lot of knowledge about that and definitely influence a lot. So
Mm,
I know that like the
definitely.
idea
Yeah.
that body is basically a project to be constantly managed in this society. So many
Yeah.
of us has this experience. Like we know logically that social
Hmm.
media isn't real life, right? We know that it's highlight reel. Some might be completely fabricated ones. And
Yeah.
still we put down our phone and feel worse about ourselves. Like, oh my God, why do they look like this and I look like that, right? So why is there
Mm,
still such a persistent gap between what we know in our heads and what we feel, like the body-mind
hmm.
connections?
Yeah, I think, I mean, just to speak of it, a tiny tangent, like even as someone who is very informed with psychology research and has done most of my degrees in that realm, I am not immune to feeling influenced by these kinds of messages. And I'll be, just shocked by how deeply I still feel the need to win social approval. And I think that's a shared human experience. I don't think anyone is immune to that, just because we know from quite a lot of psychology research now is that social approval and needing to be part of a community is as essential to us as like food and water and shelter. It's like there is this, I think it was like the Harvard longitudinal study of human happiness. And it's like loneliness and not having friends who you can call if you were in an emergency is like that is one of the biggest stressors that you can have. And,
Yeah.
on the contrary, if you have people in your life who you can ring up and kind of you have this ability to depend on others, it is predictive of having the longest lifespan. And so I just think that that's very powerful when we talk about this, because it's like, don't underestimate the power of social approval. And obviously that can go to an extreme, but we can also look at it in the sense of like, can we have more compassion for people who feel very just very attracted to these kinds of social media standards. To some degree, I think everyone has an experience where they just want to be accepted and admired and respected. And so I think that the goal is not to be completely detached from these messages. Like, it's more just to be aware when you feel that pull and to monitor when you feel like it could be going in a negative or harmful direction. Like, for example, if you feel like, oh, I'm only scrolling on social media, I'm not actually having a social life, or I'm like, it's interfering with my everyday well-being and functioning to be kind of attached to these kinds of messages, then yes, do reevaluate how you're using social media and how you are comparing yourself to people in terms of appearance or otherwise. But at the same time, it's don't deny that is a part of you, and it's okay to feel jealous or that you are comparing yourself to others. Just catch yourself and be like, hey, I'm sure they have someone who they're
Yeah.
upwards comparing themselves to as well. Yeah, I think that gives a little bit of perspective.
So it's kind of very validating to hear about that because I totally know
Mm.
that, like, if we're comparing ourselves to others, I don't think there is a maximum because we can just go for
Yeah.
it and for it. Like, this time I'm getting a 90%. Okay, I got 100%. Then I might have to be the best in Hong Kong. Then I have to be the best in
Mhm.
Asia. Like, it's just, there's no maximum there. So we cover a lot today. Like,
Yeah, we did
through
a
like,
lot.
yeah, restoring your own personal experience, social media. So I
Mm.
look forward to like your future. Like, you just finished your PhD studies, your work, and continue growth of
Mm,
the body banter. What are you
yeah.
most curious about exploring next, either for yourself personally or for the
Mm.
organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to keep it relatively vague is more just to say that I know that appearance standards and the way that they manifest in social media or in offline spaces is always changing. So I don't think that there is an end to how much I can be curious about just the latest trend and to, first of all, to catch myself, in whether or not I feel the kind of that urge to follow along that trend, and also to just be mindful of what's happening in young people's worlds, because that's the population I work most closely with high school and college students with body banter, just so to understand and have compassion for that. Because I think that, as I grow older, and I go back into those spaces, I'm like mindful and I can see how my parents would have thought that my experiences were unrelatable, or they might think it's ridiculous that I even buy into these standards. But I think just to keep that curiosity and compassion for the young people, and just to understand that just because it doesn't seem like a big deal to me doesn't mean that it's not a very real pressing stressor in their world. So yeah, that's what I'm curious to explore, just to like keep on top of the trends myself, and also to keep on top of the trends for the people I work with, and make sure that I'm mindful of those.
A huge thank you. You talked a lot about like your powerful story, how body better works, and how you work with like the teens. I
Mm,
saw your Instagram. There's a lot of things that you have been doing. So it's
mm,
really appreciated that you're doing a lot to make body image or like things about these are more accepting, especially in Hong Kong, where I feel that we're just very mean to ourselves. And
yeah.
is
Yeah.
we want to learn more about Body Banter, I'm sure that we can just follow your Instagram and your
Yeah.
website to know more about that. So a huge thank you to you and thank you so much. Thank
Thanks so much,
you.
Nicole. Thanks so much, Healing Chats.